Good evening. This is the call to order of the regular Board of Aldermen meeting located at the Salado Municipal Building at 301 North Stagecoach Road in Salado, Texas. It is October 17, 2024, and it's 6:30 p.m. Ms. Bean, please call the roll. Thank you, ma'am. As we begin this Board of Aldermen meeting, let us take a moment to reflect on our shared commitment to serve the diverse community of the Village of Salado. We invite all present, regardless of faith, belief, or philosophy, to join us in a spirit of unity, respect, and compassion. May our deliberations be guided by wisdom, our decisions rooted in fairness, and our actions driven by the common good. Whether you find inspiration in a higher power, the bonds of humanity, or the wonders of nature, let us work together to build a culture where every voice is heard and every individual is valued. Let's take a moment, please. Thank you. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance and salute to the Texas flag. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, pledge allegiance to these Texas, one nation under God, one indivisible. I'm going to move some things around here tonight unless the board has any objections. I'm going to move item 5A, discussion on the October 3rd, 2024 Board of Aldermen action on the proposed IH-35 West Side Overlay District to the front of the line, and we're going to speak to that before public comments. I know there's quite a few here that have signed out to speak, so we're going to speak on that first, and then we'll open up the public comments because it may help answer some questions. Mr. Del Rosa, do you want to kick this off, or do you want me to?
Go ahead now.
So I put this on the agenda for the last Board of Aldermen meeting after reviewing some of the documentation that was submitted with, or I guess in accordance with that proposed West Side overlay. There were a few things in there that concerned me. One was some of the word choices, but mostly I'll just get into it. The proposed West Side Overlay District should not have included regulations for native plantings, monument signage limitations, or parking criteria. These items are more appropriately addressed by subdivision or signage ordinances as they are not directly related to zoning matters. According to the Texas Local Government Code, Chapter 211, municipal zoning authority is primarily concerned with regulating building height and size, lot occupation percentage, size of yards, courts, and open spaces, population density, location and use of buildings and land, groundwater pumping, extraction, and use for health protection, construction in historically or culturally significant areas, and examples of such areas include historic downtown districts, indigenous archaeological sites, Civil War battlefields or landmarks, locations associated with significant cultural events or figures, areas with unique architectural styles representative of a specific era, and sites of religious or spiritual importance to local communities. Additionally, zoning regulations must comply with a comprehensive plan designed to address issues such as street congestion, safety, public health, adequate light and air, land overcrowding, population distribution, and provisions of public services. The items proposed for exclusion from the overlay district, native plantings, signage, and parking, do not fall directly under these zoning regulation categories. Therefore, it is more appropriate to address these matters through separate ordinances that specifically deal with landscaping, signage, and parking ordinances or parking requirements. As far as the Planning and Zoning Commission, they do play a crucial role in the zoning process. The commission is appointed by the Board of Aldermen and serves in an advisory capacity. Its primary responsibilities include developing and maintaining the village's comprehensive plan, which they're working on now, reviewing and making recommendations on zoning change requests, studying and proposing zoning regulations to the Board of Aldermen, holding public hearings on zoning matters to gather community input, ensuring that zoning decisions align with the village's long-term development goals, and advising the Board of Aldermen on matters related to land use, development, and planning. While the P&Z makes recommendations, the final decision-making authority on zoning matters rests with the Board of Aldermen. This structure ensures that zoning decisions receive thorough consideration in both the technical planning perspective and elected representatives of the community. Mr. Del Rosa, you want to add anything to that?
No, it's okay.
So that's the reason that it was taken off the table, because it doesn't fall in the criteria, and it does not fall within the purview of the responsibilities that the Planning and Zoning Committee are challenged with. Alderman Grant, do you have anything to add?
No.
Alderman Hurst?
No.
Alderman McDonald?
Yes. When making decisions at that level, when you're making recommendations, one of the decisions that as I stated already to Mr. Lassiter, chairman of that board, was that it's really important that when making that decision, we want to make sure that we're not segregating individuals on those property lines on that side of town. In addition to that, I'm real cautious about recommending approval for an ordinance or a plan that will come across to some as potentially weaponizing that ordinance, and I don't want to do that. So I find it abundantly cautious to, even though I believe that your plan was well thought through, however, there was missing parts to that, as the mayor has just brought to your attention. So at the end of the day, I want to make sure that we did not inflict any undue pain to anybody who's currently there. So thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Bell. Okay. If there are no other comments or questions by the board, I will open this up to public comments. Mr. Simmons. This is the public comments on this specific agenda item. Well, you're doing good a job of backfilling your own screen. You're doing a good job of backfilling your own latrine with all your denial of doing this, because you haven't mentioned these things before. And you haven't talked to the Planning and Zoning Commission about this. That's a shame. Many of your own ordinances have the same kind of thing in it that exists today. Nothing new in the west side overlay. That's it. So I have some questions. Did this board ever discuss any issues it had with the west side over with the Planning and Zoning Commission? Why did this board not consult with the Planning and Zoning Commission before taking up the west side overlay on October 3rd? Or now? Why did the board violate Texas law on October 3rd by taking up and denying the west side overlay? Specifically, Texas Local Government Code Title 7, Subchapter A, Section 211.007, and your own village ordinance, 2013.08, Section 2.4 G1, are Texas and village ordinances that require the board to wait for the Planning and Zoning Commission to finalize and present a proposal before acting. The P&Z made no such presentation. The board acted, and the board acted in violation of the law. We did it as a hatchet job and a murder with bias. Why did the board on October 3rd make comments that there was nothing historical on the west side and denying the west side overlay? There is nothing about historic items in the west side overlay. That is clearly not its stated purpose. And finally, what critically thinking person would serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission when their votes and work are completely disregarded by the board after your denial of the west side overlay? And about zoning in general, I find there's almost a universal benefit for reasonable zoning restrictions on property. Reasonable restrictions are good, and studies prove it. A quick review of literature indicated that in restricted over non-restricted areas, for example, there was a 48% increase in property values, 20% increase in housing values, 25% increase in overnight tourism,
16% increase in daily expenditures of visitors, 12% increase in employment, an 18% increase in tax revenue, and a 29% increase in net present value of city taxes. Zoning restrictions are almost universally positive. Further, zoning says who we are and what our social values are. This is what citizens in Salado want to be. To have no restrictions and sprawl at the whim of developers for the sake of a dollar is not what residents want. Zoning protects property rights and increases the value of all property. Salado does not want to look like Sheriff. A year ago, when the Planning and Zoning was working on this, I talked with the mayors of Kerrville and Fredericksburg and Georgetown, and they said this is the kind of language that they had found very useful, and they recommended it for us. There is no evidence that the West Side overlay will decrease property values, prejudice anyone, limit any property sales, or limit any sales tax revenue. It will not. In fact, common sense and studies indicate otherwise. Land developers want the benefits of Salado with no restrictions, but then have no problem selling Salado. So in summary, denying the West Side overlay is short-sighted because it will increase property value and sales tax revenue. It's like in the Bible where Cain sells Abel his birthright for a quick meal. It's a wrong decision, not to mention illegal. The board needs to apologize to the Planning and Zoning Commission members for commandeering their work and taking up a tabled and unfinished plan. Recognize the West Side has value to the culture of Salado and should be preserved in some manner. And they should communicate with the Planning and Zoning Commission. It should reconsider the West Side overlay when reported, completed, and recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And it should hear directly from the Planning and Zoning Commission on why they recommended a West Side ordinance. And they should have a joint public hearing with the Planning and Zoning Commission about it. Then you should pass the West Side overlay.
Mr. Del Rosa, can I speak to his comments? Okay, there are a couple of pieces of misinformation there that I want to clarify. There were discussions that were had with the Planning and Zoning Commission. I sat through a couple of meetings. We were told a couple of months ago that in December, that commission forwarded their finalized copy to the previous administrator to give to the Board of Aldermen. And I asked them that day, so as presented, this is ready to go. Then there was more discussion about the maps. So yeah, it was ready to come to us. The previous administration did not bring it to us. Again, reiterating what I just said about Texas Local Government Code 211, the items that were in that overlay did not belong there. That's part of the comprehensive plan, which they are currently working on. And now it gives them more time to work on that instead of arguing over which direction the map's going to go. Ms. Bev Turnbow.
I'm Beverly Turnbow, 349 College Hill Drive, Salado. There are several problems taken with the action by the BOA on October 3rd regarding the I-35 West Side Overlay District. Specifically, the board voted at that time to, quote, not approve the proposed I-35 West Side District as presented. The first problem is that the mayor made the motion to not approve the proposed district overlay. To my knowledge, a Type A mayor does not have the authority to make a motion other than to call a special meeting of the BOA on his own motion. Despite this, the BOA seconded and approved the mayor's motion. So procedurally, he did not follow the legal requirements. The alderman voted to not approve a proposed ordinance that has never been formally presented, that the Planning and Zoning Commission has never formally presented to the BOA. The Planning and Zoning Commission planned, and I'm speaking for myself, although I'm a member of that commission, we plan to submit the proposed ordinance to amend Section 3.18 of the 2013 zoning ordinance once the boundaries are clearly defined and we go through the required public hearing process. There is no plan or proposed ordinance for you to have voted on because it's not been forwarded to you by the commission. Instead, you preemptively chose to kill any potential amendments to the I-35 West overlay zoning requirements and to disregard almost 2 years of work that the commission and the task force has done to amend those requirements. Most importantly of all, the BOA has taken preemptive action to kill a proposed ordinance without having any public input or comment into that. You chose instead to listen to a few property owners who want no regulation. All of Salado deserves to have a voice in the merits of any proposed ordinance, not just a few people. The reason stated for not approving the proposed ordinance was that it was, quote, too objective. The irony is that your vote was not based on any measurable criteria, which is the definition of being too objective. By state law, any new zoning ordinances must comply with the 2019 Comprehensive Plan. The most important policy articulated in every single section of that plan, and I've been through it line by line. The overarching principle is that in planning for the future, the heritage, character, and uniqueness of this village should be maintained and preserved. The proposed I-35 West Side Overlay Ordinance has been designed to ensure that Salado does not become like so many other cities along I-35. We keep hearing from the board that we have to have growth, especially commercial growth. I fully understand that. But I believe your focus should be on responsible growth that does not sell the very heart and soul of Salado just to achieve that ideal. It's striking to denote that the BOA has disbanded all of the advisory boards and committees, virtually eliminating citizen input in the proposed policy. And now the BOA is both amending the agenda of the P&Z Commission as well as making decisions on policy without following the due process required by state law and our own zoning requirements. More importantly, the citizens of Salado are not being given an opportunity to have a voice in what our village corridor looks like. I hope you will take steps to rethink your arbitrary decision to not approve the proposed I-35 West Side Overlay. I will say one thing, that the Planning and Zoning Commission does have the authority by our zoning ordinance to revise and amend the zoning ordinance. That is in with our authority. And I believe, I'm familiar with section 211, and 211.003 also speaks to the very purpose of the West Side Overlay, in that we want to maintain the architectural character of the village along that corridor. That is espoused in section 211.003. The architectural and the character, it doesn't mention character specifically, it mentions architectural character of Salado, if you will. So I advise you to look at that section as well. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Mr. De La Rosa, do I, as the mayor, have the ability to make a motion?
Mayor, I believe so. I've seen many general law cities where the mayor has, and they stated that it was not lawful. I'd like to see that state statute.
And did I not ask that before I made the motion?
Yes.
As far as the things that are going on over there, again, more misinformation that we're just going to allow everything to just happen, whatever, whoever wants to build whatever can come in there and do that, and that's just not the case. We've been approached about having some apartments built over there on the corner of West Village Road and Williams Drive, and the answer was no. So we're not just doing things willy-nilly. We want it done. We want it done correctly. We want it done in accordance with the new comprehensive plan, which the P&Z is working on. And we didn't vote against any proposed ordinance. If you look the way that this thing was written, the way that the agenda item was written, ordinance is not in the word at all. Discussion and possible action on a proposed I-835 West Side Overlay District, a proposed zoning district with a West Side prefix designation. We did not vote against an ordinance. It wasn't presented as an ordinance. We just stopped the whole thing before we wasted any more time on it. 2 years spent on this, and it's not even in accordance with what the local government code is.
Mayor, let me add, 211.003, subsection 6, B as in boy, talks about architectural. You must have a historical commission. You do not have a historical commission. Only properties that can be listed in historical must be with the permission of the property owner. As far as I know, that does not exist anywhere within the Village of Salado. It's not created by a historical commission, it's created by this governing body. So these architectural requirements are only applicable if it falls within those permissions. So plan the overlay, as you see, it's very different than what's proposed on the west side. Also, when you talk about compliance with the comprehensive plan, talk about the land use more specifically, which is what it is, and you are compliant with that land use. The western side is more local retail, where the homes are at is mixed use. You have the single family residence along with the commercial corridor or the commercial circle on the northern side. That's the way that it was approved as a mixed use. Whether we agree or not, and I'm not really believing that layout, it does comply with your land use code. When you're certainly looking at this, in compliance with the comprehensive plan is one of the most important, but again, it uses words that are very much flowery in the expectation, but can you prevail in court, it's gonna default back to the state statute and not a local comprehensive plan that you adopted by the ordinance. So these two sections, and more specifically, when it was brought to my attention, and for many months, I kept suggesting, especially after the election, you should reach out to the Board of Aldermen to discuss the direction of the city, since you're appointed by them. The Planning and Zoning Commission has no authority to approve any zoning change. It's done by the governing body, period, only. So, the two sections, and one of the comments was that you violated a certain section, and you're absolutely correct. There is no, if it was proposed or they were instituted, you stopped a concept that has been lingering for much longer than we all thought it should be. And I don't believe that it is in the best interest for a governing body to allow any advisory board, even a statutorily created recommending board, to proceed down a pathway when it's not meeting 211.003 and 211.004. So regardless if it's 211.008 or somewhere else in the statute, you have a duty to make sure that you're compliant with the state statute. Any questions for me, Mayor Alderman?
Okay, Mr. Lassiter.
Graham. Hey, Jim. I walk into the meeting and I say, gee, you sure are nice. That's where are you going now? What do you say to me? I'm going to battle. I'm going to battle.
It wasn't about this.
Oh, I'm sure it wasn't.
It wasn't.
I'm totally sure it wasn't. Just, I will. Don't take my time.
Hey, name and address, please. Don't speak to her.
My
Speak to me.
name is Jim Lassiter, 230 North Main, Suite 202.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Address the board. Address that.
Let me just start by saying this did start 2 years ago. Beverly made a very articulate statement, which several statements, and so did Charles Simmons. None of which you really care about because you want to stand on something that, after the fact, after 9 months of you being here, well, you've been in the alderman over a year, right? Year plus, you were an alderman before you became the mayor. Manny's been here since December. Why in the world, if the Planning Commission was heading down a path and the task force beforehand, why in the world wouldn't you have the forthrightness and the honesty to say, you guys are wasting time because you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing? You never have told us that to this day, Manny. Not to this day. That is so disingenuous to lead us down the trail for that long and for you to do that. I might expect that in San Benito, but I don't expect it in Salado. You are disingenuous, and you walked us down the path.
Mr. Lassiter, you can address the board.
You
You're
can
not
hear me.
speaking
I
to
can
him.
talk to him.
You
I
can
can
speak
talk.
closer.
Yes,
You're
I
going to address
can.
the board. You're not going to address him.
All right. Then I'll ask you the same thing. Why? Why didn't you come forward, Bert? Why
How long
Let
have
me
you been on the
finish.
board? How long have you been
I'm
on-
talking.
You just asked me a question. How long have you been on the P&Z?
I've been on it 3 years.
You should have known.
Yeah, you should have known too.
I did. That's why we stopped.
Oh, that's yeah. No, you didn't, Bert. No, you don't. You're not that smart. You're not. And furthermore, when you want to preach about objectivity, and you did that 3 times to the Planning Commission, you must have had something in mind, but you sure didn't bring it up then, did you? No, you didn't bring it up. You know what your idea of objectivity is, Mayor? Your objectivity definition is what? What is it, Bert? What is it? Yeah, I'm asking you.
The statement that was in the proposal that was forwarded, and one of them was that it needed to be visually appealing.
Yeah.
What you consider visually appealing and what he considers appealing and what she considers appealing are different things altogether.
That's the essence of objectivity, Bert. It's not going out and terminating advisory boards because you don't want to hear from them anymore. Is it a waste of your time or what is it? But that's what you did. You terminated that. The task force that put all the information together went through that, unanimously decided what they wanted to do. Nothing ever happens, and our city manager over here has been here since December. And he never has once said anything about that to us, not once. And furthermore, I have asked you at the staff office up here a week or two after you sat over here for the first time in a planning commission meeting and said, y'all aren't being objective. And I talked to you after that meeting right there. And I said, I sure would like to talk to you. I want to hear about the 3 people that you have, you know, that disagree with you. You never brought up anything at that point about this stuff you are tonight. So I'm not a clown. Don't accuse me of not knowing something. I've been around development a whole lot longer than you, and this town I've been around a whole lot longer than you. You know, your idea of objectivity is just terminating it and doing it what you want to do. And I think that's pitiful. I really do. And if you want to find reason to take me out of the Planning Commission because I'm attacking y'all on the basis of a lack of fairness, a lack of being willing to hear the public speak about it, with all this work is done, you're disingenuous yourself in terms of listening to what people have to say. You only want to listen to what you want to hear. There's a difference in being a leader and being a dictator, and you are fastly heading down the path of the last. And that's all I have to say.
Ms. Walsh.
Darlene Walsh, 1001 No Creek Drive, Salado. Mayor and board, I'm so sorry you had to hear all of that. I'm sorry you had to hear that. Feel really bad for all of you. But I know that you work for the best of all of us. And I have been involved, and John Newman and Linda have all been involved with all these meetings for the length of time that's gone on, to include the east side. So there was at one point, before West Side Task Force was announced, there was a meeting of that anybody could attend, and a lot of people showed up. And Don Ferguson was there in charge, and he asked them all, well, what do you think about a West Side historic? You know, they initially wanted to include the rules that they came up with for the east side on the west side. They wanted to extend it to the west side. And they all said no. I mean, a unanimous
loud no from a crowd of people in this room because there's nothing historic over there. And I understand what they want to do in terms of continuing the harmony, and it's specifically, I guess, this letter said a vision statement encouraging harmony and consistency with the culture of Salado, but nobody ever described what that specifically is. I mean, if I'm a developer, I don't know what that means. Harmony and consistent with what? When I look at what they did on the east side, and they specifically were talking about the access road and how they wanted the west side to look like, I guess, the east side. And as Commissioner McClure stated numerous times, the horse is out of the barn as far as what's already here. I've counted 11 to 12 metal buildings on the east side. Some of them have wood in front of them, some of them have stone in front of them, but that's what we have. We have 3 drive-throughs, Muscovy, a bank, and Sonic as well. And but you know, that's what we have on the east side. So I don't know why we would want to encourage that same consistency on the west side. But they formed a task force, and I do notice that in the ordinance that and I think Mayor, you mentioned that it was passed, and the last mayor had an opportunity to sign off on that ordinance to establish a task force, but he didn't sign it. There's no signature on it. I don't know why, but that's as far as it got. And then it was handed over to the new board and the new mayor. So yes, I want what's best for town. We've invested heavily in town, and I have turned down renters who I knew would not be good for town for our properties. Somebody who wanted an all-night palm reading business. Somebody who wanted 60 apartments on a very small tract of land with not enough land to park. And so I care about this town, and I told those people who wanted the all-night palm reading business, do you know anything about this town? No, we don't care. Just tell me how much and I'll rent it. I said, I care. We care. We live here. This is a nice community, and I want to keep it nice. So, you know, ultimately, the landowner has a lot to say with what happens here, too. And as we get more and more people who don't live here buying property, it will, you know, you're going to get a different feel. And that's just going to happen because we're on 35, which it's like a major highway in America. So, but we do need sales tax. And my primary goal with developing the properties we have is I want something that will help town get more sales tax and jobs. And I've said that repeatedly to the library who wanted us to give them the land and to other people. We want the best for town. And the other thing about this task force, there was never any map. So how do you pass something that you don't know what is included in it? There was no map. And they kicked around a lot of ideas about what property should be included. And initially, it was just from Sonic to Johnny's parking lot. They didn't want to include Johnny's. And Josh was part of the task force, and he didn't want to be part of it. Anyway, this is what we've ended up with. Thank you for your time.
Anybody else?
Linda Reynolds, 1110 Mill Creek Drive. I've been to many meetings. I've had the opportunity to speak many times. October the 3rd, I spoke about the overlay on the agenda. I don't know that many people here tonight were here then, but I've been to many meetings. The last time anybody on the P&Z was trained to be on the P&Z was back when Skip was mayor, and we sat at that table and watched, and I came and watched it. Larry Robeson and Andy Jackson were joining the P&Z way back. Most of you weren't even here. I listened to that. But the fact remains, every time our state legislature goes into session, the laws change, the rules change, what we can do and what we can't do. We used to be able to dictate the facade of things. You can't do that anymore. There is a place in Arizona, Sedona, Arizona, that has a blue McDonald's sign, of all things. They insisted on it because they're surrounded by red rocks, and they didn't want the yellow showing off against the blue. But I don't think we can do that in Texas, not in Salado yet. I just appreciate, number one, I don't want Charles's idea of increasing the value of my property. I got my taxes. I'm okay with them. I don't want my property to increase in value anymore. I know that's anti-everything, but in fact, I don't need that to happen. I would like more tax dollars coming in. I appreciate the sales tax going up. I appreciate businesses here that I can get to easily, and I am more than happy to help out with the P&Z. I think we need training for all the members so we all know what those rules are. I'd be more than happy. They're missing a person. I'd be happy to join the P&Z. I think it was a mess in the last 2 years in general, and people who weren't elected thought they could run things, and I'm sorry for that. I think you're doing a good job. I appreciate your hard work and your volunteerism, and I hope we can just all take some deep breaths and get through to the holidays. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Jim Boynton, 3565 FM 2843, Salado. I've been a victim of the Planning and Zoning Committee for years. I bought a piece of property just to build houses for my children because they graduated from school here. They wanted to live here. The grief that the Planning and Zoning Committee gave me was unbelievable. They'd make you redraw your plans. They'd make you redo this. Nothing that others in the town were having to do. They reached out and did that on their own. I've had people come up and tell me, you're not going to build anything here. You're not from here. That's what's wrong with this town. We have a small group of people who keep getting on and off of the planning and zoning. Anytime they're told no, you see what occurs tonight. It's getting old by the rest of the community. The 5 or 10 people that care are here tonight. The rest of the community is doing something. They've realized they've heard enough of it. These people don't own those properties. We own them. One of the examples I'll give you is they said I didn't have a fire plug within 500 feet of the house I was building, so I couldn't build 2 houses there. But the truth of the matter, there was one within 200 feet. They used every rule in the world. And just like was stated before I got up here, they had a guy on the planning and zoning. He didn't want his business to be in it, so he basically pushed to have it opted out. That is the type of selective enforcement that we have. If our friends want it, we'll go for it. If not, we'll bully you till you quit. That's getting old by everybody. I apologize that y'all have to listen to this, but that's not something that's occurred in the last 2 years. It's been going on 15 years. I've got 3 sets of plans to show what the Planning and Zoning Committee disapproved 3 different times for different architects. And then at the same time, I went down and got open records requests, and some of these long-term Saladoites are drawing their plans on the document they turn in by themselves with no engineer stamp, nothing, and they're just rubber stamped by their friends on planning and zoning. That's getting old. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Now, agenda item number 1, public comments. The Board of Aldermen welcomes comments from citizens on issues and items of concern not on the agenda. Those wishing to speak must sign in before the meeting begins and observe a 5-minute time limit when addressing the board. Speakers will have one opportunity to speak during this time period. Speakers desiring to speak on an agenda item will be allowed to speak when the agenda item is called. Inquiries about matters not listed on the agenda will either be directed to staff or placed on a future agenda for Alderman consideration. Any public comments? Not on the agenda? Nope. Okay, moving on. Item 2, consent agenda A, approval of minutes of October 3rd, 2024, regular Board of Aldermen meeting. B, acceptance of Development Services Department monthly report. C, acceptance of Tourism Department monthly report. D, acceptance of Police Department monthly report. Mr. Del Rosa, do you have anything you want to, any of this? Okay. Mr. Simmons is requested to speak on Development Services and Tourism.
Simmons, 217 Salado First Place, Salado, Texas. Actually, I want to speak a little bit about a couple things. Your demographics in your agenda. I guess I don't understand them, and I don't understand really why they're there. What do they mean? Is there any goal for those kinds of numbers? Do we need more apartments in Salado? Do we have a strategy for getting to any goals that you haven't? I think we need to hear about that, not just have some numbers sink into something which shows us we might have just run off a cliff. On tourism, it appears to me that y'all need help. It's more than the Board of Aldermen can take on, because you got other things to do. It's more than the tourism director can take on, because she's busy. You need help of people in the community that have 10, 20, 30 years of experience, have run businesses, quality businesses in this community, and know what works and what doesn't work. It might be nice to look to the tourism committee. They have that kind of experience. But you guys axed them, and you did it in a very demeaning way from what I understand. Good luck next time you need a life preserver from those people. So we need more input here, and we need people who will come alongside and give ideas. By the way, you've done the same thing with the Economic Development Committee and the Music Committee. Those people have valuable input. They need to be part of the city, and they need to have input to tourism and other things that go on in this city. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Alderman Graham, you have any questions?
No questions.
Alderman Hurst? No questions. Alderman McDonald?
No, Mayor, no questions.
Mayor Pro Tem Bell? No. I'll open the floor for a motion.
Mayor, I recommend approving the consent agenda as written.
Motion made to approve by Alderman McDonald.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Graham. Any further discussion? Question called by Alderman Hurst. All in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions? Ms. Bean, passes 4-0. Item 3, discuss and consider possible action regarding any item removed from the consent agenda. There were none. 4, status reports. The Village Administrator's report. Mr. Del Rosa.
Mayor and Alderman, you're going to see that for the month of July, report in September, we received $68,197 from sales tax. And then again, I give you the 3 prior years up to $64,000 last year, $60,000 year prior, and $51,000. So it's looking good. So any questions for me on this or any other matters? Alderman Brown? No questions. Alderman Hurst? No questions. Alderman McDonald?
No questions, Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Bell? All right. Thank you, Mr. Del Rosa. Item 5B, discussion and possible action on the employees' medical plan for fiscal year 2025. Mr. De La Rosa.
Mayor and Alderman, I've got Mr. Richard Walker, our broker, who does the medical plan. There is no increase or any change to the dental and vision, so that will not be considered now. I think we've got another year or two left on that program at the same rate. So, Mr. Washington is here. I'll let him kind of give you a summary, then I'll give you at the end a recommendation after.
Good evening. Richard Walker is my name, resident of Wimberley. Wimberley has, it sounds like Salado. I mean, we have the same kind of issues, the same kind of concerns, same kind of folks that are very vocal. I was hired, if you will, for lack of a better term, enlisted, recruited to be your broker about a year and a half ago. So I've worked with previous administration and have worked with current administration since December of last year, maybe of course longer. Taking input from the employees, what they need, what they like, what they don't like, as far as the benefit level. When I came into the city about September 23, the city had their employee benefit plan with Texas Municipal League. They're now referred to as Texas Health. They can no longer use that name, Texas Municipal League. And at that time, they were looking at a renewal with the city of over $1,000 a month per employee. So that was a year ago, year and a half. We were able to go to the market. We found some plans through Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas. That's your employee benefit medical plan here at the city. A deductible was selected based on the budget item at that time. We met that number. We were able to improve the dental benefits to the city employees. Matter of fact, there's a feature that I really like. The carrier for that is called Guardian Life. Guardian has the dental and vision for the city. The vision is through a vendor called VSP, but Guardian manages that. VSP is the nation's largest vendor for vision care, and so they have allotments for frames, lenses, exams, and so forth per year, but mostly with copays. Dental has a nice feature in it, though, that has got a rollover benefit, because what I find historically is that most employees don't utilize all of the 100% of their employee benefits allowed it for dental in a calendar year. But there's a rollover provision in that dental plan, so the benefits for 2025 will actually increase for the employees that haven't used 100% of their benefits. So that's a nice feature, and might allow them to have an additional service or two for dental. Those contracts were all placed with either a 2 or a 3-year contract. Your life insurance is through a vendor by the name Carrier of Standard Life. Standard is they've got a basis in San Antonio, so it's convenient for me to work with those guys that I've known them for a lot of years through my affiliation with Texas Municipal League. I had over 16 years with Texas Municipal League, and I've been in the industry nearly 50 years. I've seen most everything happen, and I've heard most everything in that length of time. Manny and I go back to the Shenandoah days, which is it's over nearly 20 years ago, I guess, 25 years ago. So he and I have kind of followed the tracks over the years, and then we both wind up here together. So I think that's pretty neat. Long story short, the dental and vision will be renewed for another year with no change in cost to the city. Benefits, anytime I can improve benefits at an equal or lower cost is what I always strive to do. The life insurance, as an example, with Standard, we increased that benefit from 1.5 times salary to 2.5 times salary. My primary motive about that was to support the first responders you have here at the city, and I believe strongly in what they are about and what they do, and so that benefit's greatly increased for them, and it is on and off the job, so it's 24-hour coverage for folks. So really proud of that benefit. Blue Cross. Blue Cross's plan is in the network called Choice. Choice is the nation's broadest network provider-wise, so if there's a specialist in any insurance carrier's contract, it's going to be in Blue Cross and Blue Shield, Texas. That was something that was felt very strongly by previous, and it's felt very strongly by current leadership here at the city, that we maintain that relationship. You recall the discussion that Baylor, Scott and White, and Blue Cross had. They were given a September deadline. They put that on the shelf until December. They both agreed to continue the relationship. That goes back to 1942, I believe. And so they've got a long-term agreement. What normally happens is that the facilities or the providers, the physicians, want more per diem or more per procedure fee. Those are negotiated. I just saw yesterday where the doctor group in El Paso had negotiated with Blue Cross. So that happens around the state on a frequent basis, and you may pick up on that. So my recommendation to leadership and to the Board of Aldermen and Mayor is to continue your contract with Blue Cross. I did secure outside bids. I did find one with a lower premium than what the renewal will be with Blue Cross, but it entails complete disruption of provider relationships, and it would be doing business pretty hard on the employees. In other words, they would have increased copays for their prescriptions. There would be a lot of additional out-of-pocket costs to the employees, and I didn't feel that the trade-off in savings to the city's bottom line was enough to shift to the employees. So my recommendation then would be to continue with Blue Cross for that, continue with Guardian for the dental and vision, continue with Standard Life for the life insurance program. Anyone have any questions that I can help you for?
What was that delta between the decision or the recommendation moving forward and the one you were talking about with increased copays and things of that nature? I would like to know what that delta is.
It's approximate premium.
Right. Well, no,
Or the
honestly,
carrier.
that you were talking earlier about the savings that
Yes.
you know the village would have in its bottom line were not worth the disruption. And I'm trying to get out of you, if you have it,
Yes.
what that dollar amount, the delta there between
Yes.
those two are.
As an example, the renewal, if I read these right, with Blue Cross is $1,009 per employee per month. The quote from the alternate carrier, we were looking at 883. $881.60 was the plan we were looking at.
Okay, so we're looking at roughly between $200 and $300 difference per employee.
No, sir. About $180.
About $180 difference between
Yes, sir.
the two per employee. And Manny, we have how many employees?
13, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think there are 11 on the plan right now, but.
And then you take that number and multiply times 12 to go to the mod. Say, yeah, that it sounds like that. I agree with you. That's a negligible.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. That's all I have.
Alderman Hurst. No question. Alderman McDonald.
No questions, Mayor. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Bell.
Just real quick, my concern usually lies with employees with families that have children. If under the Blue Cross Blue Shield plan, when they have to take a kid to the emergency room, what's that cost? Do you know off the top of your head?
I believe it is $250 copay, plus it depends on if they've met their deductible already or not. If they would either be at 20% or, that negotiated rate would go through their deductible. But the copay is 20%.
On the plan that Alderman Graham was speaking of, it was a lower cost plan. You know what that?
$500.
Yeah, it would have been twice as much. So cost to them would have more than they would have lost that money within one week.
Yes, sir.
Exactly. So,
Mr. Del Rosa, do you have anything you want to add?
Mayor and Alderman, I was gonna make the same recommendation. So Mr. Walker and I actually sent the information about 2 weeks ago, same time about when I sent it to you. I've gone through it. We really didn't have much of a conversation today, so today I wanted to know what his position was, and we always look at what the savings could be for the city overall. We also look at benefits as what keeps some of our employees here. Based on that age workforce, we try to give them the best benefits we can. Some have dependents that are dependent on specialists, and some have children that do not live at home that are on the plans that could be somewhere else, and that means they would be out of network. Blue Cross Blue Shield does negotiate with Village White and every other major medical around the country, most likely. But Village White does not. So if you're out of the network, sometimes it's very different. So my recommendation is, as Mr. Walker said, that we stay with our current provider, and we did incorporate an increase, not knowing what we were going to have, but it was across the board based on what we were seeing, like Texas Municipal League and everything else that we have. So, our budget can sustain it because we had already looked at that.
just one quick question. I know you mentioned about insurance. Do employees have the option to opt in for additional insurance on top, life insurance on top of what they have?
Yes, sir. We call that additional life.
Right.
So the active employee can purchase up to, if it's a new employee, they can go up to 500,000. If it's an employee that's been here, and this would just be another open enrollment period that we're about to enter into, they can purchase up to 300,000. Beyond that, they can go into with evidence of insurability. Otherwise, those would be guarantee issue limits. Standard is really the industry leader for municipalities, and they're my preferred vendor for that. In the future, in doing business with the city, it's always my commitment to have scoured the market. There are a lot of new things coming at us, level funded plans, ICRAs, individual choice, health reimbursement accounts. There's a lot of options that are looming that the city doesn't quite fit that criteria yet, but as the city continues to grow, we might fit into a different criteria, and we might be able to come up with some more creative solutions for the city. But today, being a small group, there's just not that many alternates out there.
And short-term and long-term health, is there a provision?
Disability?
Yeah.
We don't have that. We do have a provision with Guardian. We have long-term, I believe, here at the city. We don't have short-term. We can add that. It's a fairly low number, but, you know, it's kind of at what point is enough. But I'm happy to do that study.
We can also make it
something to be considered for the future.
What we normally do with that Alderman is coordinate that with the current sick leave timing and so forth that the city has, and we try to work around that and then do some wraps. And then we will build a short term and then overlay that with the long term that picks up in that short term period. And so, thank you.
Anything else? That's thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Any public comments on this item? Come on up, Mr. Street. Yes, please.
Gerald Street, I'm at 859 North Ridge Road, Plato, Texas. I just wanted to ask the gentleman, when you were talking about 13 employees, this is not a stipend. This is just designated money for self-insurance. If the officer's wife has insurance for the family, that money is not available to him just as an officer applying life insurance or something like that. It's not question.
I think what you're asking is if the employee's spouse has a better coverage, does the employee get the stipend of what they would have been paid?
Yes.
In lieu of not using it for the village.
Is there any restriction on how they can spend that money? But you had experience with that. And teachers.
Right. No, that's right.
There is no stipend.
Yeah, and I don't.
There is no stipend.
No both sides.
Either they opt
Get
in
the
or they
money.
don't.
Either opt in or opt out.
Okay, that's fine.
Any more comments? All right, if there are no more comments, no more questions, I'll open the floor for motion.
Make a motion that we accept the employee's medical plan for fiscal year 2025 as recommended.
Motion made by Alderman Graham to approve as recommended. Second. Seconded by Alderman Hurst. Any further discussion?
Question.
Question called by Alderman McDonald. All,
May I just clarify, we're talking Blue Cross Blue Shield.
That's correct.
Yes.
question called by Alderman McDonald. All in favor of approving as recommended, say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions? Passes 4-0, Ms. Bean. C, discussion and approval of financial reports ending September 30th, 2024. Mr. De La Rosa.
Mayor and Alderman, as you have requested, most of you, that we discuss the financial statements every month. So for the end of September, while we're closing out the most recent fiscal year, so the summary page that's put together by accountants is presented to you. Every month and every quarter, you'll be able to see a percentage as we go through where we are. So I want to make sure that not only that I send it to you with enough time to make an inquiry, so to prepare me in case I need to go do some research so I can answer the questions more intelligently, but certainly at these meetings, so we can address any of the overages that we may go in a certain line item, or for example, we've discussed recently that for the upcoming fiscal year that we're going to proceed forward with the tech stop project. So we will put together a capital improvement plan that will be adopted, incorporated, the budget amendments or the budget amended, and then we'll figure out how we're going to issue the debt issuance to be able to carry those things out. So again, your budget is very fluid. It's a guideline. You don't know any emergencies that are going to come up through the year. So, but this is an opportunity, and it will be every month for you to be able to address some of those concerns as we're going through ultimately. So, other than when I just get a request from one or two people by email or give me a call. So, just so everybody knows what's going on, and not only you, but also the citizens that are paying attention to exactly what we're doing with our finances.
Thank you, sir. Alderman Graham, do you have any questions?
So as I take a look at this, our general fund for end of year for this previous fiscal year, in the whole 61,276 for the general fund, and then in the whole wastewater fund 135,822. Am I reading that right?
That is correct.
Okay. Can you speak? I think we have a fairly clear understanding of the general fund deficit there, but I would like you to talk to why the wastewater fund finds itself in a deficit presently.
Well,
and I know we've discussed this previously, but I'd like a refresh on it.
We've had some major repairs that we had to make during the year that were not accounted for. There's not really much of a maintenance fund. It's very standard monthly fees, kind of. So you've made some improvements at the wastewater plant. We had some issues, especially during the freeze. That took some cost, and then lately a lot of issues with grinder pumps, sewage. Some of it ours, some of it's not ours, along Main Street. So that certainly ran up some of your bills. We incurred a fairly large sewage spill over by the Salado water supply on a dead-end wastewater line, whether it's ours or not, but it is an environmental issue. This happened very early at the start of my tenure, and to get plumbers out, and that was almost, if I recall, something close to $30,000 to repair. And again, a line that we didn't know existed, and where it's at, whether it's really within an easement. But again, as the discussion was at the time, we don't allow sewage to just go all over the ground and not address it. So,
Do we have a challenge with our receivables not being able to match our expenditures?
we have had, and we're addressing that. So there are some that have connected to the wastewater system and we weren't collecting. Either we didn't know, especially through the application process. Recently, for example, in Drake's Landing, I was driving and noticed a specific house as I was looking at some roofing work, and I was in phase one, but I was looking at some work in phase two, saw that there was a certain property. I recall the address because I took a photo of some roofing material. I just happened to see within a matter of days an application for a property, and I thought, well, that's kind of unique. That property looks well manicured, and I saw the gentleman waved at me. So I asked the staff, I said, you know when they moved in? No. Overnight, I said, you know what? I'm going to pull up the bill CAD records. Came to realize that that person moved in sometime about 13 months prior, and didn't have collected a bill, and nor did they submit any application, and the builder never requested a certificate of occupancy, so it fell off our radar. Okay? As of now, you can't get a building permit for a new house without submitting an application for wastewater service. Matter of fact, I halted some of Brothers today, Brothers Executive Homes across the way. No permits until the application comes in, you post your deposit and set up an account. And the reason being is, when the Salado water supply, before they let you pay your impact, your connection fee. And you start getting billed monthly for water services, which is what our ordinance requires. We just don't know who they are. And even builders, from the time they get a permit, and about 6 weeks after, they start running water and it starts going through our sewer system. Construction usually takes maximum 4 months. So for 3 months, we don't know, and the new homeowners are not coming in. So we are now going back. We're billing. I think I informed you we sent out 38 different mailings on past due. It's really past due. So, in June, I guess it's Sonic today, yeah, about $8,000. So that
Sonic's paid up?
will be, yes.
Good.
Yeah, so ultimately, we are trying not to go back, right? We are changing our business model, how we do business, how we monitor, and in fairness to the homeowner, may or may not, but paying a water bill, which is the second as a sewer bill, right? So who do we hold responsible? The builder. It will now be incumbent on the builder. If he doesn't want to keep getting a monthly water bill, he's going to tell us when he sold it to disconnect it so that he can have the new owner take over. So it's training our staff and going back after those funds.
Yeah, and let's talk about wastewater fund for a second here in terms of the expenditures piece of that.
Okay.
How do we come about, or what are the metrics with respect to how much someone will pay monthly on their sewer bill? Is it tied to living unit equivalents?
No.
Or, does a person that lives in the house and it's just them pay less than a person that has 6 people in their house because more is going through to the sewer system, things of that nature? How is that adjudicated, or is it?
Yeah, there is a formula for calculating how we calculate 12-month billing, and it takes a 4-month period, generally the winter months. Why the winter months? People tend to use less water in the winter months, therefore you're going to get a slightly better reading because we're using that 4-month period. I think it's November, December, January, and February, right? So that 4-month period calculates for a monthly, and then you are billed for the next 12 months based on that water usage, right? I don't know if we should be using the winter months but not looking at a full 6 or 12-month period because we tend to use more water at other times. So as we discussed earlier, we were talking about folks that are paying sewer services on sprinkler systems. We're basing it on a winter month and not on an overall 12 months. Let's say somebody moves in and says, hey, I just moved in 30 days ago. and what are you gonna charge me? And they don't wanna get charged with the building reason. So we're having to delay that for a few months, get an average billing for a 3 or 4 month period, and maybe the spring or the summer, so we can calculate something, because, one of the complaints was, well, I bought the house from the builder, and it was a model home, and I don't know what they were renting. So, yeah, so we have to kind of adjust every time we get one of those type of, issues brought to us, so we can come up with a formula to how to base a 12-month billing period. So, but we can try to utilize, stay as close to that formula that's within our ordinance.
That's all I have.
Alderman Hurst. Alderman McDonald.
No questions now. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem. Okay. I'll open it to public comments. Mr. Charles Simmons.
Charles Simmons, 317 Salado Creek Place, Salado, Texas. Well, I have a question again. What happened to the $2.2 million that was missing funds from the village? Citizens in this village would like to know, and I'd like to know. Do you know? Are you going to tell us sometime soon? Do your accountants know? And what are we doing about it so that we can get it back? Now, Darlene may not care about her taxes going up. She don't want to pay them, but other people do. And we'd like to know where that money is and when you go tell us about it.
The short answer is that is an active investigation at Salado Police Department. Chief, would you like to? I don't want to overspeak here.
Mayor, members of the board, it is an active investigation. It is an investigation that we're taking very seriously. We've looked at a forensic accountant that was going to cost the village a whole lot of money. I have reached out to the Texas Attorney General's office. They have agreed to provide us with a forensic accountant at no charge. We're looking at going back approximately 7 years and making sure that our numbers are correct. Currently where we're sitting now is I've got the documents pulled for our accountant. I'm afraid I'm at the mercy of the state at this particular moment. We can spend money to get a forensic accountant, or I can have one provided by the state. It's just going to take a little bit to get to us. I will let you know that investigations of this nature are not an overnight thing. There's a lot of documents to go through. There's a lot of data to absorb. So with that being said, this is not an investigation that's going to be over in 2 weeks. This is an investigation that's going to take some time to make sure that it is done correctly and responsible parties are held responsible.
The Office of the Attorney General has offered up a forensic accountant. Have they assigned that forensic accountant
I
yet?
have not received a name yet. Tim Weltzer, I believe is the gentleman with the Criminal Investigations Division that I've been dealing with.
How long has it been since the Attorney General's office made that commitment to present?
Approximately a week and a half, almost 2 weeks.
I may be speaking out of turn, but Manny, could you break down that 2.2 for the audience? I mean, because, when we're taking a look at our budget, yes, we were in the hole 61,276 on general fund, wastewater fund 135,822, but, that's just a fragment of what we're talking about here.
Let me simplify it. If you look at your audit reports outside this in the past, you were running deficits. Okay, everybody thinks that deficit that it's uncommon. It is not uncommon. If you read what local schools are doing currently, school districts are running deficits, adopted budget with deficits, and they're hoping that if the school bond elections held on November 5th, that they're going to come out of these things, right? Generally, cities don't run deficits. When they do, it's with the understanding that they're going to make an amendment to the budget and utilize their reserves. That's generally if you have your 120 days general fund reserves, and if you're required to have reserves for your wastewater, your enterprise fund. And so you don't. Some do. Some have it by order. Some have it by charter. The deficit from what I can tell is it doesn't look like there's embezzlement. That's why we have people look at it. But it certainly looks like it's a misappropriation. He spent the funds, right? Not only the reserve funds, so that's why you're still running some deficits. We made it to the end of most recent fiscal year. Plus, we also have the $900,000 that is part of an escrow account, right? So an escrow account was taken, if I recall, in January of 2023, deposited, and we're still trying to, and that is why we're trying to determine how those funds were not earmarked or how they were spent. So that's how this 2.2 million.
Yeah. So the 2.2 is an accrual over a series of years operating from a deficit, in addition to the 900K plus that was an escrow.
That is correct.
That is what equals that 2.2.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question? Okay, thank you, Chief. Any more questions?
No questions. Thank you.
No questions, Mayor. Thank you.
Are there any more public comments?
Larry Michaels, 1546 Long Meadow, Salado, Texas. Misappropriation is a broad term. Do you know what it was misappropriated on?
No, sir.
I thought it was roads. A lot of road improvements. I thought I heard
But
that.
well, not to get into a lot of depth, because that's part of the investigation. But we paid for some designing, engineering, environmentals for 3 TxDOT roadways, a federal EPA one. So you've got the Mill Creek, Williams Road, Rose Creek. There was a $1.5 million grant from the federal EPA to the village. $378,000 is the city's portion of that amount. And there have been already payments. So we also did a lot of asphalt repair work when I first came on early. So we were just going through the money. And again, these are still improvements that will improve quality of life when you're spending them on roadways in the city. But that doesn't mean that it was budgeted appropriately.
That's correct. That's what I was trying to make. Somebody didn't put the money in their pocket and run away. The money was spent.
That's what it appeared.
It appeared. And it appears it was spent judiciously, I guess. Maybe not. But there was some enrichment.
Any more public comments?
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, there was one additional thing that I think adds to this. Could you speak to our strategy in terms of getting ourselves out of that hole, at least with respect to the years we've been operating in deficit? And again, this is a somewhat rhetorical question, but for the greater good of the audience, I would ask that you talk about our adjusted budget, seeking additional commercial development, things of this nature, to try and get us right-sized again. And with that strategy that we have in place that you and the mayor and we have worked together to build, how many years we look at getting back, or getting back to that point. Of course, that includes the ad valorem tax rate increase, things of that nature.
Yes, yeah, I had the same conversation with a resident who came by yesterday and wanted to know if this was the best course of action that we took, and I believe it was. I said, look, it's going to take us 2 fiscal years. I said, I started on day 1 of the second quarter of the most recent fiscal year that's terminated. I said, that budget was already set. I can't change direction on that. But fiscal year 25 will be better than fiscal year 2026. If you look at your sanctuary home, if you look at Drake's Landing, you look at others, most of those homes, those developments started about 18 months ago. You didn't get any benefit in January 2024. You'll get some in January 2025. Your January 1 of 2026, you're going to be sitting in a much better position. So, the mayor's indicated that, he'd like to be able to start reducing taxes in about 2 years, maybe 3 years. And I believe that by the fiscal year 2026, you're certainly going to be able to have a better idea of starting a reduction. We've been in contact with a lot of developers lately. The developers and developments are on all parts of the city, both sides of the interstate, and a lot of activity along SM 2268. These are investments. They're wanting to move forward, including even down on the southern end of Main Street. But the point is, they are looking to move as quickly as possible. The market is primed for them. You have been sent information on each one of them because some of them 2 or 3 meetings in the last few months, and some of them need to close on these properties by the end of the year. That means some of them that were taken out of the city limits in the last year, one specifically is about 174 acres, one is 125 acres, plus another 46 or 49 acres, will be annexed again in the next fiscal year because he's got to close on 125 by the end of December, which means that we're going to get some of these properties. They all want city sewer. As the mayor put in, I recall, asked if we could start looking at the rate structure so the general fund would not subsidize the wastewater.
Right.
We are working on that. We will comply with state law to make that happen. And whatever the rates are, is what the rates are. But everyone that is wanting to come in is wanting to connect. You already had ordinances that go back to about 2015, 2016. You have one ordinance for the wastewater and 6 amendments. A total of 7 ordinances that I had to go through to understand your wastewater ordinances. Okay? It requires that to connect to our city sewer, you must get a building permit, which implies that you must be in the city. Here recently, in the last 2 months, you've adopted an ordinance that says, hey, regardless whether you're wholly or partly, if you want city service, you must annex. It took out any vagueness out of that ordinance and added clarity. So with that clarification, every developer that we're talking to, and there are some establishments just outside of your community that are going to annex, and they're large businesses because they want that sewer service, and they will front the money. So we won't be issuing debt anytime soon to run sewer lines or build capacity. We will work with our partners, with the development community, to make those improvements. So, Alderman, I believe that by fiscal year 2026, you will see in your tax bill how much better you are, and by the end of that year, we will have a better idea in May and June for the 26-27 year, because the timing is just, well, you've had the sanctuary development for some time now. Most of the work didn't start until sometime in 2023, and they're now getting some momentum. All 7 buildings at Water's Edge, 30 units in each building, 7 buildings, all 7 buildings are to be completely anticipated by the end of this calendar year. That means that those buildings will be on the tax roll at that time. Even if it's not 7 and it's 6, they will be on your tax roll on January 1, 2025. And that adds value to the property valuation.
So, just to be clear, what I've heard you say, based off of questions that I've asked you, is we have a very clear understanding of the breakdown of the 2.2 million, and we also have a strategy to get us back in the black within the next couple of years based on the things that you've discussed. Is that correct?
That is correct, Alderman.
All right, thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Where we were in public comments. Okay. There are no more questions, Mr. De La Rosa.
No, Mayor.
I will entertain a motion at this time.
Make a motion we adopt the financial statements dated September 30th.
Motion made to approve by Mayor Pro Tem Bell to approve them as presented, seconded by Alderman Graham Any further discussion?
Question.
Question called by Alderman McDonald. All in favor of approval of financial statements reports ending September 30th, 2024 as presented, say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions? Passes, Ms. Bean, 4-0. Item B, consideration and possible action to approve list of surplus and/or obsolete items to be sold at auction. Mr. De La Rosa.
Our new employee has started going through the sheds, made the repairs to the damaged door, but we now know what we've got. We're going through asset management. We did, Ms. Pence and I met with Michael Yates, the area manager for TechDOT out of the Belton office, and we discussed the inventory of the extra street lights that we had from the Main Street project. So you might recall, set of lights went up, lights came down, another setup. So we have 63 of those light standards that they do not want back. They don't even want to discuss it. And we're asking permission to auction them off. They are not compatible with the street lights that we currently have. We can't interchange cars. They're just, I don't see any reason for us to keep them. If they didn't work the first time, I thought about using them somewhere else, and why have a headache? So I consider them to be obsolete, surplus. With your permission, we'd like to get them auctioned off.
Thanks, sir. Any public comments on this? Alderman Graham, you have any questions?
Is there anything else that needs to be auctioned off that's been identified so far?
No, we're going through some of the equipment. You know, there's some other things that doesn't work. We may look at it. There's some street equipment that has got some asphalt in it that's hardened, so we'll have to see if we can't rehabilitate it. But you know, unfortunately, a lot of the tools weren't properly maintained, so we're having to rebuild that. And again, we are now handling asset inventory control and identifying what we've got and also maintaining them.
That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Hurst. Alderman McDonald.
No questions, Mayor. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Bell.
Could I propose Alderman Grant? Could we auction him off?
Hey,
If you like.
you can auction me off in June. How about that?
You got something?
Quick question. I actually found the cost of these lights. Mr. De La Rosa, did you see what the retail value with these? Did you do the research on that, sir?
No, I saw up until I put this packet together.
Yes, sir.
Lance Warbeck actually left it on my desk sometime Friday. I went through it Saturday, so I didn't look it up. And again, if TechDOT didn't want them,
Right.
yeah, that was kind of the key indicator, so I didn't waste any time, other than I wanted to know exactly what we had. So I appreciate that he pulled it out of one of the box, so I could at least present it to you. And based on it, you know, we will determine from the auctioneer what he thinks we should get out of this. I mean, I don't want to give something away if we can get as much as possible.
Understood. Thank you, Mr. De La Rosa. Thank you, Mayor.
Mm-hmm. All right, there are no further questions. I'll open it up for a motion.
Make a motion to put the lights up for auction.
Second. Motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Bell to approve the list. The agenda item is to approve the list of surplus and/or obsolete items.
I amend mine to approve the list.
Well, I thought there was going to be more, so I wrote it in hope that there would be more stuff to get rid of. So when I posted the agenda or got it ready, it's all I had so far, so I modified it for that.
Is it just lights or is there a list?
No, they're just lights. There are 63 of the same lights, and that's why I put it, 63 Sternberg lighting standards see attached, which is that description.
The original motion is to approve the sale of lights. Seconded by Alderman. Okay. Any further discussion?
Question.
Question called by Alderman McDonald. All in favor of approving the auctioning of the surplus lights, say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions? Passes, Ms. Bean, 4-0. Item 6A, executive session, convene an executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code sections 551.071 and 551.072 on proposal from Legacy CTX Incorporated regarding Pace Park facilities. It is 8 p.m. and we're moving into executive session. Time is 8:55 and we are leaving executive session and convening back into the regular Board of Aldermen meeting. Ms. Bean, for the record, we started at 8:15. Okay, item 7, discussion of possible action, items from executive session. There will be no action. Just give village administrator and our attorney to move forward as discussed. No?
No.
Next item on the agenda will be adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
So moved. 8:56.